It is officially baseball season. Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be covering the Phillies. Quite honestly, it feels like it's been so long since I've talked about the Phillies, but everybody is reported to spring training and we are nearing opening day faster than ever. This season should be high with expectations, but a lot of news has happened over the offseason and a lot of things have changed. Let's get into this one. So yeah, the Phillies had an interesting offseason. They didn't do too much, but they also didn't lose much. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and I think that we're still a good team. I think we're a top, I'd say 6-5 MLB team. And I'm really excited to see what this team can do this year. We have obviously the same returning core, lost a few guys, gained a few guys, but I think this roster has the potential. And I think with the mix of old and young, we can really do something special. So to start off this video, we're going to go over the key additions and losses of this offseason. I think Dave Dombrowski did an okay job with the losses that we kind of expected with Jeff Hoffman and Carlos Estevez, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I also think he kind of missed out on some holes, which I will also talk about in a minute. But let's start off with the additions. He brought in Max Kepler, who's a left fielder. I guess you could call him an outfielder. He's been decent in his career. He's a known name in the MLB. Jesus Luzardo to come and be our fifth guy, good off-speed pitcher, and he's going to be good to have as the fifth guy in your rotation to solidify us being one of the best rotations in baseball. Then we have Joe Ross, who is going to be some more starting and relief depth. He'll just pitch some innings when we need him to. He's made a name for himself over the past few years, and he's not a bad pitcher. And then we have a former All-Star, Jordan Romano, who is going to provide us with some more bullpen depth with the losses of Jeff Hoffman and Carlos Estevez. Hoffman got a ton of money elsewhere, so I wasn't really expecting us to bring him back. And Estevez, it was a little shaky. We got him at the deadline. He was okay for us, but at the end of the day, we didn't bring him back. Good news is that we still have Matt Strahm on the team, so the bullpen, him and Alvarado should anchor it down. Romano will be a decent addition. Expect Joe Ross to kind of be the eat up some innings if we're down big early on, or he'll be the sixth guy in the rotation if it's not Andrew Painter. So the next thing we're going to look at here is the depth chart going into the season. This is everyone that's on the 40-man roster. Obviously, the roster is going to have to be cut down to 26 by opening day, so not everyone will be on this roster. But yeah, I'm really liking this team. I'm not going to lie. I think it was a little bit of an underwhelming offseason just considering we were linked to so many other guys. I was hoping that we maybe get some more bullpen help aside from just one lone signing in Jordan Romano, but we didn't. But it's okay because I think the supporting cast around it is okay enough. But obviously the rotation, this is kind of how they have it going. Not really, I personally think the order could go any way after Wheeler, and then I think Nola should be second. You'll have Sanchez, Suarez, and Luzardo to round it out. And they're projecting Andrew Painter could make the roster, which I'm a little iffy. I think he should definitely start the season down in AAA, and then maybe bring him up if he gets hot. I'll put it up right here. But it looks like he was learning the Cole Hamels changeup, which was one of the dirtiest pitches back in the day. And I mean, the MLB better watch out if that is the case. So I'm really liking our rotation. I would say it's probably top three in baseball, maybe behind the Dodgers when Shohei's in there. And then the bullpen is where it gets a little shakier, but I do kind of like this, 1, 2, 3 punch we have. And then the 4 and the 5 are also decent. After that, it kind of falls off. Strom is obviously, he's one of the best pitchers, one of the best relief pitchers in the NL. Jose Alvarado is also decent. He'll probably should close games out. Then we have Romano, who also might close some games out. Orion Kerkering should be a pretty good setup guy to eat some innings. Tanner Banks wasn't also awful. Then you kind of have Ruiz, Joe Ross, Taijuan Walker, some guys that might get some action. Ruiz got a little bit last year. Joe Ross was okay when he was with the Nationals, and he floated around ever since then. So I assume that they'll probably get him some innings as well just to get him some more MLB action. And I really hope Taijuan Walker doesn't pitch. I'm going to be honest. I really hope he doesn't. Just moving down the line now, we have first base, catcher, the infield. By the way, I think after Taijuan Walker, I don't think these 4 guys will make the roster. Maybe they'll get called up later on. But again, it has to be cut down to 26, and I think like 11 to 12 pitchers is probably the max they're going to be able to take. Catching, obviously, is going to be JT. I'm really hoping for at least like one more good year out of him. He's still a very good defensive catcher. Looked a little shaky towards the end of last season, so I'm hoping that maybe he put in a little bit more work this offseason. And I personally think Garrett Stubbs should be the backup catcher after him, just because I think Stubbs is also a very good defensive catcher. His hitting isn't really there, but he's good vibes in the locker room, and I think that's kind of what Rob Thompson embodies about the team. And I think Marchand might get some MLB action throughout the season, but I think he does not make the 40 or the 26-man roster either. First base, again, it's going to be Harper. Expect Alec Boehm to get some reps in there when Harper isn't playing, and Cody Clemens would obviously be right behind him. Again, Harper, really hoping for a big year out of him. He's 32. He'll be 33 around the end of the year. So I'm really hoping that this is one of his best years, as it might be one of the only other years we'll get to see out of him that he will be in his prime because I think he's nearing the end of it. Second base, it's going to be Stott again. I'm hoping Stott can be a little bit better this year. He hit 280 in his in 2023, and last year went down to 245. Hoping he can aim for somewhere in the middle at least as a starting point, and I'm hoping that the hitting is there because he's a pretty good defensive catcher. Again, the defense for this team has been what has won them a lot of games. A lot of double plays have been turned with this middle infield with Stott and Turner. Very good defensive players. I'm hoping that the hitting is there for him. And Mundo Sosa is going to be a floater this year as well. He's been that. That's been his role. And I think that he's just going to have to suck it up. I think we definitely could see him in left field a little bit if Rob Thompson wants to experiment. I know he was getting a lot of those reps in spring training. So definitely something to watch. And Weston Wilson also could as well get some outfield reps. But I think one thing, like I'll say it now, I think that Dave Dombrowski struggled to get his permanent long-term left fielder because I think Marsh is slowly going to turn into be that permanent center fielder. I think Rojas is he's in a way missed his window, and I think he's falling a little bit behind. I think we still got to get him the reps, get him to the maximize his potential, but I think it's going to be Marsh's job sooner than later. Moving on to third base, Alec Boehm was the center of trade talks this year, and I personally, I kind of wanted him gone at the towards the beginning of the offseason just because when it mattered most, he didn't execute. And I think that's when it matters most for any team. If players doesn't execute, maybe they're not really meant for the team. Rob Thompson reiterated this offseason that he was going to be their guy for as long as he can imagine until something crazy happens. He's going to be their dude. I respect it. He's a good player. He's a good fielder. But he's got to execute. And that's the one common theme that the Phillies are really going to need to focus on this offseason. Last but not least, to round out the shortstop position, it's going to be Trey Turner. Turner struggled a little bit last year, just swinging at stuff outside the strike zone too often. Him and Castellanos kind of like doing that. So I hope Kevin Long got them more discipline this offseason, and I think he's kind of the main guy that needs that help. Other than that, he's a decent defender, and in my mind, he's still a top 10 shortstop. Moving on to the outfield, I think this is like the biggest, I don't want to say the biggest hold on the Phillies team. I think it's one of the things that they kind of need to figure out because in the offseason and in the playoffs, it didn't really look like we kind of had a firm three guys in the outfield. Obviously, Castellanos is going to be the right fielder. That's known. But I think Marsh really needs to be that permanent center fielder from now on. Rojas, maybe like 1 in 4 games he gets to start. But Marsh needs to be almost the everyday guy, which he kind of had that role. Rojas came into town last year, and he just never really fully regained control of it. And I think this year they finally need to realize that and kind of get that going for him. And in left field, it's going to be Max Kepler to start the year. I'm interested to see kind of how this pans out. I think if the hitting's there, that's all that really matters just because the fielding, I mean, you're an outfielder. I mean, you track down balls, you got to be decent enough. He's a decent outfielder. And I think that if the hitting's there, he could be our guy. But again, I think left field is probably the biggest hole when I look at the Phillies lineup in general, at least position-wise, other than maybe relievers. I think that's probably their biggest hole. So again, I think the outfield is probably going to be the most important thing to stay on this entire offseason. I don't think Oscar Mercado makes the 26-man roster. I think everybody else here does. I think Weston Wilson will definitely make it as well. And of course, Schwartz is going to be the DH. Beautiful things out of him throughout his tenure. Extend him, please. Give him at least 2 more years, 2 more good years out of him, and then I understand if you let him go. But you can be a DH for a good amount of time. I mean, he can be a good hitter until I'd say he's at least like 35, 36 range. I mean, he can hit the ball. And, I mean, all he really needs to do is trot around the home run. Trot around when he hits a home run because he's not really doing much else and he's not fielding. So he's kind of that perfect leeway because I think he won't take a huge amount of money and he's also just going to be consistently decent enough and he's going to be a good hitter in the lineup. But yeah, just something to monitor. Pitchers and catchers' first workout was a week from today. The day I'm recording this is the 19th. The first full squad workout was on Monday, and their first game is on the 22nd. So I'm really interested to see how things go. I think Johan Rojas' spring is going to really determine a lot for the team. Depending on his status and how much he's going to play, it's probably going to determine a lot. I think you got to get Alec Boehm some reps and definitely just get the vets some reps. You don't want them to be rusty going into opening day. But I honestly, my thoughts for this Phillies season, I think it's going to be a really good one. I think this could be the year that we finally get the job done. And I know I'm being very hopeful about that. But Nick Castellanos today, he had an interview. A reporter asked him, like what do you think this team can do? I mean, how do you guys feel like you can play? He really said, I don't know, but there's not a lot of pressure on us this season, and we can be that sneaky team like we were in 2022. And that's exactly what I think is kind of the case here. There's last 2 years that were I would call a failure. This year, their guys are aging. There's more motivation in the clubhouse than ever, in my opinion, just because they are hungry for revenge. Guys like Harp want it a lot. Castellanos wants it. A lot of guys, the whole clubhouse wants it. The young guys are energized. It's a perfect balance, and this really could be the year. So yeah, today was more just of a shorter video. I just kind of wanted to give you my thoughts on the Phillies season and the offseason that they had. I'm really hoping for a good year. I think right around opening day, post spring training, I'll make a video, just my reactions to how things went, who should make the final roster before it gets announced, because I think that's probably going to be the most important thing we see from now until opening day. And one thing I will say, do not play like don't do any dumb things, okay? We don't want to get any of our guys hurt like Reese last year, because that kind of hurt. I'm sorry, 2 years ago when he tore his ACL, that really hurt. So learn your lesson, and yeah, I'm interested to kind of see how things pan out. A lot of questions can be asked. Is Andrew Painter going to get some time this year? Johan Rojas, is he going to be the starter in center field? Is it going to be Marsh? A lot of things are going to go on. Thank you guys so much for watching. Of course, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you are new. We are on the road to 1,500 subscribers as it starts right now with this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.